last, what is it?
48
almost
hours.
48 hours. Like I'm getting
Did
pretty
something happen?
for I think
I've kind of been off the
happened.
net for the last couple of days.
It's like I'm just picking up on the energies, like on Twitter, you know, like my kind of like my
kind of
masculine intuition.
Happened.
Yeah. It feels like something's happening. Like everybody's in good spirits for some reason. Something to do with this Ross guy.
I wouldn't say everyone, but all the people that used to be shrieking are no longer shrieking. They're just like, stupid shit. I guess everybody likes them now.
I would love to take a poll of all these people who are pretending that they didn't vote for Trump, that just like kind of want to like still hang out with the people they always hung out with, you know, the wildebeest with the purple hair and shit, and like all the gay guys and transsexuals and, you know, everybody that works for these bullshit government organizations and 501c3s. The people that were like, dude, I can't vote for this fucking lady over here. Like, I can't vote for her. And I'm going to go vote for Trump, and I ain't going to say shit, but I want to keep all of these friends around, right? Dude, how many of those people are out there going, yeah, he sucks? Man, I'm really hoping on like an external revenue service versus an internal revenue service. I'm, you know, like all these people, I guarantee you, man, like there is a ton of those kind of people out there going, I'm going to give them at least the benefit of the doubt right now.
Well, and I didn't even think about it until you started talking, but like, I'm wondering if like the way they did the TikTok dipsy doodle, I'm wondering if they did that on purpose to like draw out all of the outrage and exhaust them. And then like right before the inauguration, they're like, oh, just kidding. It's back here. You can have it again. And then they're just like, what? And they're just like left behind in this like weird outrage withdrawal stupor of theirs. They don't know what to be mad about. So now it's just like, okay. Because
I'm so mad at him when he brought back my special app.
Yeah, you look at the executive orders and like they're going to be mad about DEI because they're bringing back meritocracy. Like, okay, see ya. Like, bye, get out of here.
Yeah. And it's funny to see these idiots like Charlie Kirk, right? Like Charlie Kirk from fucking TP USA. You know, he had been on record on Twitter with a number of tweets just saying, you know, this whole like Chinese infiltration and, you know, control of, you know, this media for young people and all that kind of this programming, you know, he was absolutely 100% against it. And then all of a sudden Trump comes in and goes, hey, by the way, we're going to save TikTok. And all of a sudden like Charlie Kirk's like, hell yeah, Trump's awesome. You're just like, wait, you're such a piece of shit, man. Like, oh my God. Charlie Kirk and the rest of TP USA and the guys over at the Daily Wire, like, you want to talk about, you know, a bunch of dudes that are finally exposed. Oh, and Tim Pool too. Like, what a fucking joke. I don't know, man. It's just to see everybody's, you know, true colors, you know, now that are
we don't touch that. Yeah, we don't touch that.
Yeah. Every time, like, now, hey, you need to be careful, right? Like, you see, I'm sure most people have seen that clip. Like, oh yeah, you can't talk about the genocide, but you know, we can talk about anything else. Just hand wave genocide there. It's ridiculous.
Well, and like in the one thing I did, well, maybe not appreciate, maybe I do appreciate it. I don't know, but like the outrage around the TikTok stuff, the takes and the justifications for the outrages around TikTok. Like I told Mel, like we were just talking about it while we were eating earlier. I was like, you know what? Like hearing these people flip out about not having their little crack pipe of an app on their phone anymore, like really actually makes me want like a catastrophic event, like a civil war in the US or like a military operation against us. Just like bring up the difficulties. Just be like, shut the fuck up.
It's a realignment of priorities, right?
Yeah. It's just like, let's experience some reality again and like, you know, recalibrate the population to like what actually matters, not like some dopamine factory where you're spending anywhere from 5 to 60 seconds entranced by something and then going on to the next thing. It's like, good Lord. Like I'd rather actually see you addicted to a drug than being addicted to the blue light machine that is also surveilling your every move and thought. like good great.
Oh, you know what we should talk about too is we should talk about that Dr. Jack podcast that
yeah,
we love a little bit.
You guys know that I can talk a little bit about Dr. Jack.
Yeah, dude, man, I was really, I've heard him a couple times in snippets, but I've never heard him long form, for 4 fucking hours, do what he did with Breedlove, man.
3 times.
It's incredible. I mean, the amount of knowledge that man possesses, the detail of knowledge that he possesses and can articulate. I wonder how many times he's talked about this with people, and they've just gone like, dude, I don't even know how to take you right now. Like this
I was one of them, because he started on Clubhouse. Well, maybe that's not when he started, but like that's when I first heard him, was on Clubhouse back in 2021. And like some of the stuff he said, even I was like, dude, you're fucking nuts. Like, there's no way, especially around the SV40 stuff. I was like, nah, I don't know. I buy that, like, Lee Harvey. I'm in agreement with Lee Harvey Oswald didn't actually kill JFK, but like,
yeah,
I don't know, Jack. Like, some of this stuff is a little crackpot to me, and I kind of disregarded him. And then like getting it in long, like him finally coming out on a podcast and doing the long form, I'm like, okay, you provided me all the little crumbs that are in your head so I can understand where your mind's going. I can see it and I fully buy into it. But yeah, like as far as like the stuff that he's talked about, like I think besides like the SV40 and the JFK stuff, like you guys should definitely, you two, and then like anybody in the audience, like methylene blue is interesting. I've been testing it out for the last like week or two, and it's a noticeable difference like within an hour or two of like supplementing it.
Talk about that for a second while I share all these posts.
Well, so methylene blue is something that Dr. Jack Cruz talked about using in his neurosurgery field for what would be the word? Not like operations of where like they needed to like manage the inflammation of a brain. So they would use methylene blue to like circulate through the brain, from my understanding. But then it's also a good supplement for people as far as like an energy provider, because it increases mitochondrial output. And the interesting thing that I need to do a little bit more work on is it's a dye. Methylene blue is a dye.
Okay.
And so like I got it off a company, I think it's like the Methylene Blue Company or something like that, off Amazon. It's like a 2% concentrate. For those that are thinking about it, you're gonna want to just drop it onto like the back of your tongue, or like, because it comes in drops. You're gonna want to drop it like on the back of your tongue or the back of your throat. You're like, some of the places online say you can mix it with water. Don't do that. You're gonna literally stain your whole mouth blue. Don't do that. Yeah.
It's just
not recommended.
Like you just sucked off a Smurf.
Oh
yeah,
man.
No, like to fruition. Like you don't want that look.
Obviously to fruition. I mean, come on, what are we doing? We're going
like,
all the way here.
What's the comment I made when we were filming the documentary in Nashville? I was like, well, you're not actually jerking anybody off until like there's a finish for it. But anyway, the interesting thing about the methylene blue supplementation is that I feel like a tingliness like in the capillaries, like in my lips and in my ears, which is like, that's how I know it's like actually working. It's not like something like caffeine where you kind of just like feel your heart rate pick up, and that's kind of it. Like if you've ever taken a pre-workout that has like intense like carnitine or can't think of the other one, carnitine and niacin. If there's high dosages of those in your pre-workout, your capillaries will tingle. So like your cheeks, your ears, your lips, like they'll all start to tingle a little bit, because those all like catalyze the effects of caffeine. But yeah, methylene blue seems very, very interesting. And I'm supplementing at like 20% of the recommended dosing. So like they're
sounds like cocaine. Not that I've ever done cocaine. I mean,
I've never done it either.
And lips.
I've never done it either, but like I could see that. I mean, like this is kind of like a stimulant type effect, but like with the Dr. Jack Cruz stuff too, though, is like the things he talks about with like another interesting thing with health is that he talks about how it's been discovered through like ultra sensitive microscopes that our cells produce very low levels of UV light.
Right.
And that makes sense to me in the sense of just like mitochondrial like energy generation, but like also like an immune function, like an actual like sterilization kind of like it's not like they're going around with like a UV gun and they're just like blasting shit, you know. It's like just like a low emitting kind of like UV like radiating out from the cell. Like it all makes sense. Like it makes sense to me, like because like to think that there wouldn't be more than one like redundancy defense mechanism within our bodies with how complex they are would be just like stupid. Like
Well,
I can't
yeah,
think
I
of any
mean,
other word.
the fact that we're just, I think it's becoming more mainstream now that we're electromagnetic beings, right? Like that idea that you're literally electromagnetic beings that are, existing in this electromagnetic, universe. The energy that you can perceive and radiate is one of those things that has much more, of an impact on, I think, who we are, what we're experiencing, whatever this is, this consciousness is. There's so much more to this than just, oh yeah, you absorb and radiate energy. No, like there's to kind of like peel back layer one, you're talking about literal communication with the maker through energetic waves. And that's something that, I've always been that guy that was very unimpressed by, church and the fairy tales that, I don't want to say I'm not shitting on anybody's religion. Please don't take it that way. I just think that it's always been oversimplified to the point that it's meant for 5-year-olds instead of people who are much more thinking, mature adults that want to go down more of a scientific, understanding with all of this. In terms of your real relation, it's not we just believe and we have faith. No, man, like you're an energetic being that has mass. So you're literally a electromagnetic being that can communicate through time and space with a creator. Like that's something that, I mean, as a young guy, that would have piqued my interest a hell of a lot more than like just say your prayers and have some faith, guys. Like what?
Well, and people want to act like censorship only existed like with technology and the internet, but it's like ideas like that were censored. Ideas that they wanted to spread were dumbed down for 5-year-olds. Like that was their technology of propaganda back then. So are you really shocked to hear that they were maybe hiding some things from you?
Well, and the thing that really did it for me to like start kind of like roping me back into like spirituality and like being like more accepting of like some of these like religious doctrines. Well, I mean, not doctrines, but stories as far as like how things came to be. Not necessarily like the creation story as far as like Earth was made in 7 days, but like metaphors with that and like stories like Noah's Ark and all that stuff, I think is becoming more real. But to your point, Shane, one of the things that really kind of like tied the knot for me was looking into the theoretical physics around like the stuff that like Hal Puthoff and Friedwart, like Winterberg and these other guys finding out that like there's because like the thing that never sat right with me like in high school and everything talking about physics was like, oh, there's just a bunch of empty space between all of the atoms that are circulating around a nucleus and the protons and electrons. I'm like, that's fucking stupid. I'm sorry, but that doesn't make a damn lick of sense. That like that like all of space would be 99% nothing. That no. That doesn't make any sense. And like the point I'm getting at is these theoretical physicists are finding out that like, it's like no, it's not that there's nothing in between. It's like the gap in between is filled with energy. It's just energy that we don't know how to perceive or feel or detect. It's not that there's nothing. And it's like, where's that echo coming from? There
you're good.
Is filled with energy. It's just energy that we don't know how to perceive. Am I the only one hearing that?
No, it was Zapstream. Those sons of bitches.
They got us again.
I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. I just want to make sure it's like not just on my end or something. But the thing is that like these theoretical physicists are finding out that the like everything, like we're literally, like you're saying, light beings or energy beings floating around and moving around within a constant state of flux of pure energy. That's all that reality is, just these different forms of energy, like all kind of interacting with each other in this, like, if you look at like a radar map of the planet of like the meteorology for everywhere, it's just like all this soup mixing around constantly. It's like, that's us. Like, that's what all the light is coming from the sun that's falling onto the planet, that's feeding the plants, that's feeding the animals, that they're dying, that they're getting buried, and like they're decomposing and producing bacteria that produces the oil that we use to power everything else. That's all that reality is just a remixing and a reconstructing of all the energy that's falling on the planet. It's like, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's amazing by design. I mean, and that's all right. No, I think that's a, I tell you what, we like to start off real slow here at Bitcoin Veterans, just wade into the pool of existence.
And snorting pre-workout with that intro.
All right, Bitcoin Veterans is coming at you. Hold on to your butts. Welcome to Bitcoin Veterans. I got Mike Hobart with me. Jordan, I'm Shane Hazel. We do this every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. And Bitcoin Veterans, what's funny, guys, is I was actually talking to our buddies over at Fountain FM earlier today, and good stuff is happening over there. I can't wait to break some news to you guys about those guys. But first and foremost, we were kind of talking about what we needed to do to go back and forth and kind of work with each other a little bit, and some of the print, pulling it from the website, which is bitcoinveterans.org. If you want to join us, you don't have to be a veteran or in the military. You can be a civilian. We have chats for anybody and everybody. This is about growing the mission, and the mission that I've actually never read off of the website for the show. We'll try this as a Marine, I guess. The mission is: we are a group of military veterans and devout Bitcoin advocates, drawing our shared experience, defending the values that our nation was founded upon. We champion decentralized, trustless systems that empower individuals and communities and eliminate central authority and advance the cause of a free, open society. By harnessing the transformative power of Bitcoin, we strive to promote a world where every individual has the undeniable right to control their own destiny, assets, and privacy. We stand against tyranny in all forms, using our combined expertise and passion to ensure that the promise of liberty thrives. Together, we will continue our oath to safeguard the ideas that define us. We are veterans, we are Bitcoiners, and we are for freedom. Man, that's a good mission statement, guys. I don't know who wrote that, but well done. This is Bitcoin Veterans. I know there's a lot that we just said, but there is something for everybody here. We empower veterans through education networks, career security, advocacy groups, and support groups for things like mental health. There is a lot of benefits to becoming a member here. You've got exclusive educational resources tailored for veterans, networking opportunities for veterans in the Bitcoin space. If you're tired of mining fiat, trust me, the Bitcoin space is a much better place to earn a living. Career development in the Bitcoin industries. I don't know about cryptocurrencies. We probably need to change that. Discount on Bitcoin security tools, opportunities to contribute to the podcast and advocacy groups, and support your other best veterans through financial empowerment. There's so much more than that. We've got groups, I said, like for everything, whether it's Citadel's Communication, Operation Bitcoin, the Brave Experience, a million different things. If I'm forgetting anything in particular, that's just Bitcoin Veterans in a literal nutshell.
I was gonna say the ham radio and pilots and health groups tend to be some of the most popular. Besides, like, besides our meme chat, which I think is understandable for everybody. That meme chat is like, I think we've technically got 2 meme chats at this point, and one's already full. And it's just like there's no. It's kind of like Elon. There's no stopping it. Like once you open up the gates, it's like,
What's funny is we have like this meme chat where it's just like the dumbest, funniest things being talked about, and then you have the Intel chat where guys are breaking down like geopolitics and like
and it's
global
the same
events.
guys.
And,
It's
it's the same people.
It's hysterical, and that's why we're winning the war, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It does
Speaking of
feel
winning
like
the
that.
war, what's that?
I said it does feel like that, doesn't it?
Well,
It's like a battle has been won.
yeah. I don't want to say, hey guys, like, good job, pack it up, we're good. No, I think in this time we need to be absolutely at our most scrupulous. We've got to really keep an eye on the new administration and everything that's going on. And there's a ton going on in the past 2 days. I mean, unless you've been under a rock, you know that Donald Trump is now again the president of the United States. But in terms of winning battles, one of the things that we wanted to kind of hit on tonight is the fact that the great Ross Ulbricht has been pardoned. Donald Trump put out I don't know what they call them on truths, retruths, whatever. It says, I just called the mother of Ross William Ulbricht. Her name is Lynn, by the way, to let her know that in honor of her and the Libertarian movement, which supported me so strongly, it was my pleasure to have just signed a full and unconditional pardon for her son, Ross. The scum that worked to convict him were some of the same lunatics who were involved in modern-day weaponization of government against me. He was given 2 life sentences plus 40 years. Ridiculous. That was at almost 7:00 tonight, man. I think we were all waiting on bated breath for this. And boy, you know what though? All the credit in the world to Donald Trump for doing this. I mean, was it day one? No, it wasn't. So first promise was broke, but he did follow through within the first 48 hours.
Is it though? Wouldn't inauguration day be day 0?
It's definitely half of a day. It's not.
That's how I thought of it.
It's just like, all right, like I'm not gonna be that pissed off. He did it if he did it on day 2, like whatever. He did it. Thank God. I'll take that.
Because I mean, like when you start a new job, like most of the time, like when you start a new position, regardless of the level, it's like it's kind of expected to not like have all jets burning like at full power yet. Like I mean. I didn't like. I would have been happily shocked if he did it. Like last night. Did I expect it? Absolutely not. I was actually in the because it came through like 2 hours ago, like an hour and a half, like the Ross Ulbricht thing. I was fully mentally prepared and committed to come on the podcast and be like, I told you guys not to expect Donald Trump to do it. Like right out the gate.
You were saying in the text beforehand, like, that mother.
I was like, I'm laughing right now because I was right. And then like 30 seconds later, I was like, I'm laughing right now because now I'm wrong.
I you know what? And I will grant yesterday was day 0, right? I mean, there are a lot of other people who have come into office and done absolutely jack shit besides party, go through, the motions of inauguration balls and everything. Like, great, but there was a lot of stuff that happened yesterday. The fact that, we're going to call it day 0, I guess that's kind of like, calling the ground floor in Europe, right? They don't have like their first floor is the floor above the ground floor. Just, okay, great. Ground 0. If yesterday was day 0, you know what? I'll concede. Maybe it was day 1 and he kept his promise. Good job.
I feel like this is going to be, I feel like this is the microcosm of what this Trump administration will be. It'll be a whole bunch of like, yeah, he did this thing right, but there's all these other things here that we can nitpick that he really fucked up on. And like, that is even for those of you who voted for him and supported him. And maybe you like a lot more of the things that he's doing than I do, but I still feel like we've got to keep these people's feet to the fire just because
Yeah.
they might appear to be more on your side. Don't trick yourself. Like, keep them there.
You should
Trump
be
might be
hardest on
done
people you
after this,
support.
but he is going to be rising up like the next group, and you have to let them know, like, we are not going to forget, motherfuckers. So, like, keep your word. So far, so good, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, being cynical, you should be the most cynical of the people that you gave your vote to, your voice to. You know, if you're a supporter of Trump, you should be the most cynical. And there is a ton to be cynical about. I think there is, you know, a right way and a wrong way to do some things. You know, maybe for instance, right, this whole thing with Ross Ulbricht, right? Like most of the people out there were just like, hey, dude, like free Ross, right? It wasn't like you dirty ass son of, like that was not the majority of it. Like there's a lot of people working on this. I know we had some people that were close over at Bitcoin Magazine, you know, like that are obviously whispering in the ear of Trump and, you know, at least his sons and things like that were like, hey, man, you really need to get on this. You know, Roger Stone was out there saying some things on Twitter like, hey, this is going to get done. Elon came out and said, hey, guys, listen, it's coming. Like I have assurances. I'll even give Angela McArdle over at the Libertarian Party, who's the sitting chair now, credit. She had some tie-in and said, hey, you know, it's coming either late tonight or tomorrow morning, which it didn't, but you know, at least people were communicating out to these people.
Well, and I give her huge credit just for kind of making those negotiations to be like, hey, if you want to come talk at the Libertarian National Convention, like we gotta get something out of you. If you're trying to win over votes, one, this is what we need, and two, this is what will get you the votes. And so, I mean, in a long history of Libertarian Party failures, this is probably one of the biggest successes to actually show, hey, here's this other voice that if you don't start paying attention to, it can sway an election. So you don't have to have the majority. You just have to have enough to swing it, and people are going to have to start listening.
Speaking of Steven's comment, keeping it warm, it is going to be a wind chill of -20 here. So appreciate that, Steven. But like one thing I wanted,
Mike Hobart.
one thing. Well, like sitting here with my freaking space heater right behind me. But one thing that I was using to kind of describe the situation of the Ross Ulbricht situation with my girlfriend was like the sentencing he got was just absolutely unreal. Like he effectively just made like a Bitcoin only Craigslist.
Well,
like,
yeah,
I don't remember hearing about the founder of Craigslist going out and getting busted for the prostitution and everything that's going on his website,
or it's anybody putting out a hit and using AT&T's phone lines to do it.
Yeah,
like no one would ever think.
Or the line of thought from if you've seen the Banking on Bitcoin documentary, which is a classic for beginners. If you guys haven't used that to orange pill anybody, I think it was it Voorhees? I think Eric Voorhees used the argument for Bitcoin where he's like, you don't hear about any of the banks getting busted for their ATMs that they know are being used consistently for drug money and crime and all that. It's like they're not getting in trouble for it.
Jamie Dimon was literally the banker of Jeffrey Epstein and the Mossad, for God's sakes. I mean, if there's ever a bigger piece of shit in terms of, you know, quantifiable, like in terms of dollars laundered, spent, given out, whatever the case is, like that guy just pays like, oh, you can commit any crime you want. It doesn't matter. As long as you have the money,
just pay the right fee.
Oh man,
it's like Mahler's went in heavy against him too. That was the best part. If you guys saw that clip, Mahler's went hard. He's like, "Oh, you mean Epstein's banker? Yeah, I don't care about his opinion at all."
That was great.
Just the fines that they have had to pay for financial penalties and stuff is just astronomically bigger than any illicit activity being used with Bitcoin. I'm not saying that it's not happening, but it's just like such a fraction compared to the US dollar.
And they accepted paying those fines because they made 10 to 100 times that amount.
Yeah.
It
was all factored in.
Yeah, it's unreal. What do we want to bounce off to first with like topics? Do we want to cover executive orders, or what do you want to do here, Shane?
Man, we'll keep it fun and pithy. There was some things that happened out there. I guess it was yesterday. Yeah, it was yesterday. I don't know exactly what arena they were in, where they were basically signing the executive orders, and everybody who was going to be part of the administration was coming up. But old Elon made some news, and oh, some people lost their fucking minds, and other people were like, "Yeah, hell." Like, we were talking about this on the way home from jiu-jitsu in the car last night with the kids, and because my kids are interested in things like this. They're interested in Bitcoin. They're interested in a whole lot of things, that they need to be interested in the world. And so we started talking about this, and I had some thoughts. I would like to get you guys' thoughts first and foremost, because obviously I don't think this was I don't think this was the Hail Hitler. I don't think that was the reason behind this, but go ahead.
This is an autist who's just he's so pumped, and he's just trying to say, like, I'm giving my heart out because you guys did so awesome. And he's just such an autist that he does it in like the weirdest way possible. And it's the fact, like we talked about earlier, like we need to hold Trump's feet to the fire, but we're the serious people in the arena who are actually going to like point out the actual mistakes that he makes and where he's going wrong. And then you have all the people who think that they hate him and think that they're against him, and they're just going to say, oh, this is a Nazi salute, and they're just going to continue with that rhetoric. And it's like, look, you have nothing constructive to say. You just have something stupid and moronic to just point the finger and be like, oh, it's Nazis, 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 racist, racist. Like, nobody gives a shit that that's your argument. Like, I have a real argument for why the guy sucks. What do you have? That's it? Okay.
Yeah.
Sit down and shut up.
What do you got, Mike?
I think that there's a little bit of a mixture of things going on. I think that first and foremost, like, we know Elon is a meme lord, and he's known for one of his favorite cryptos being Doge, but like the other favorite because of the memes would be Pepe. And there's all the liberal kind of talking points the last couple of years of the Pepe meme being tied to Nazis and white supremacists. And he likes the meme. So and he likes to troll, especially from his position in his high tower. So I could see it being a way of like him knowing how it's going to be received and him knowing how he intends for it, because like Jordan was saying, I agree, he was clearly hyped up in the moment. I could see him doing it for both reasons, to be hyped up, but to also troll because he knows exactly what it's going to look like. But I'm going to say ultimately, I think it was probably like an Aspie oopsie, thanks to Asperger's.
This is what you get when you mix Asperger's and mushrooms.
Yeah. It's like, because I mean, and then there's the whole topic around like pushing back against what is Tom Luongo calls them, the Amish, but we all know that they it rhymes with shoes, but in dude, I think it was mostly for humor that he did this. I don't think it was humor in the moment, and I think that's also the reason why you haven't seen him make like a public statement. Like he's like, no. Like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah,
I was like hyping up the crowd.
He's quote tweeted like stupid comments on Twitter and stuff. Like that's he's continuing to troll people. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was that too. Like, I'm gonna get these fuckers.
He's
just gonna watch the other side lose their mind.
So
watching the video of that though, like he was hyped. Like he had lightning going through his veins when he did that.
Exactly. And that's where I kind of come to is when I was explaining this to my kids, I was like, listen, you got to understand, like, this guy is on a different planet in terms of, where he exists, right? Like he's not hanging out with mere mortals most of the time. And then there's this thing called Asperger's, which is kind of a weird thing. I don't know if it's autism or Asperger's. I know he's on the spectrum.
It's intense. It's intense autism.
Yeah. And so he's a little bit awkward to begin with. And I agree. I think the Pepe frog, I think this was totally one of those things where Elon's like, oh, you want to see somebody make headlines? I'm going to make some fucking headlines. Like, this was a total PR stunt. Like I'm going to be bigger on the inauguration day than the president of the United States, who just got reelected. Not only did he get, the popular vote, but he secured everything in terms of the electoral college. He's coming back. He signed 200 executive orders in one day. Fuck this. I'm going to get this right now. I'm going to throw this out there. And whether they do it or not, I've got plausible deniability. I was hyped up. I did it differently from the heart. And they're like, he doesn't give a fuck. This is everywhere. And it's, what people were talking about. He, trolling those guys, like you said, I think to get the tears and the frustration and, the fear from people who have been trying to make everybody else afraid, right? Like, this was one of those moments where you just kind of sit back and go, this is pretty good, Elon. Like, you're a jackass for a lot of shit. But
the ADL defended him. That's the wild. Yeah, the ADL, they tweeted about it. They defended him. They're like, yeah, he wasn't actually doing what you guys think he was doing. It's like, wow, okay. What's going on there?
I also think that they have been dominating the news cycle and the narrative. I mean, you think about like when Trump came in last time, how much of it was focused on him just being this unique evil, and he's brash and all these things he says, and like we can't even. They're just like distraught and like beside themselves because how did this guy win? We just can't even believe it. And this time they're just like, no, we're just gonna make this all about us and all the great things we're doing. Like, I even think the Ross Ulbricht thing is like, they're like, we've got this ace up our sleeve. We're not gonna throw it on the table as soon as we walk in. Like, we want people clicking and refreshing screens and seeing like, all right, is he free yet? Is he free yet?
I was wondering if that was
a little bit of that going on, I think.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. And like, I was actually just kind of like, I was wondering if that wasn't intentional part of the strategy. Is like, oh, they want the drug, like let's let them kind of like fiend for it a little bit, and then we'll give it to them, and then we'll be like the savior. Because like, the Hegelian dialectic, is that what that is?
I couldn't even go to sleep at one point. I was like, I was like, all right, I just got to let this go until tomorrow. And then I like kind of woke up. I was like, all right, I'm just gonna check. It's been like 30 minutes before I go to bed. Let me just check. Is Ross free yet? All right, I'm pretty sure it's not happening tonight. Let's check tomorrow. Because that's all I really care. Like, is this happening? Now that that's happening, it's like, all right, let's shift fire and let's talk about ending these wars you said you were going to end on day one.
Well, like one thing while we're going to be on this topic for a little bit anyway, I wanted to talk about, Shane, I might be forcing your hand as far as like, I don't know if you had a progression of the EOs that you wanted to talk about. But the one that I really want to talk about, and we can use it to dovetail into the January 6th stuff, is this conversation around the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Like, this is another thing, like with the Bitcoin community, that like I really want Jordan, I really want people to like, especially like the younger Bitcoiners that like maybe this is like their first cycle, like they're within the first 4 years of like being in this space. Like, one thing you guys need to understand now, I've not worked in politics, but I think I have enough life experience to understand and know that like something like a strategic Bitcoin reserve, it's going to take a long time to plan that out to the point of where they're like, hey, we now have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. That's a long time of getting to that point of signing that piece of paper. And like that thing is like, off into the races and operational. It's a completely separate story after that to talk about filling it. Just like with like the strategic petroleum reserve, which, by the way, for those of you that forgot, is basically bone dry thanks to the Biden administration. Like both of these things are they're going to take a long, and it could, like, we don't know the rate that they intend to use for filling the strategic Bitcoin reserve. It could take a year after it's been made, which making it could take a year because of politics and like red tape and paperwork and all that. It could take anywhere from like, I could see 1 to 3, 5, 10 years to fill it to the point of where they're comfortable stating that like it's fully operational. We don't know what the strategy is going to be. So to like expect that all of a sudden they're like Trump going to get inaugurated and snap his fingers and all of a sudden we have the million Bitcoin that they're talking about having, like, that's like, let's be realistic. Like, it's not going to happen overnight. And it's probably not, I will be shocked if we get any confirmation of it this year. Like, I'm expecting 2026 at the earliest.
Yeah, but I do think that there are some very small signals that at least could be sent out where even whether it's through an executive order or just saying that it's my policy to move legislation forward on a strategic Bitcoin reserve. But once you say that, you've now opened up the door of like, all right, now they're actually moving forward, and this is kind of what it looks like. And I just think, I, even though the TradFi has had, a year of ETFs and they've had time to front run this as much as they can, I still think they want to push that off as long as they can, because once they start talking about it, then I mean, there are so many people like on the fence right now. I've had people reaching out to me like, hey, how do I get Bitcoin? But they kind of see the writing on the wall. And what they would what the TradFi would love is for there to be a dip for as long as possible. You know what? I'd love that too, actually. But they would love for there to be a dip so that they can scoop it up beforehand, so that once it's announced, they can make that much more from it. Like they're thinking just like we are. And I had a follow on to that, but I just lost it.
I know that all too well. But like that's the.
Go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, okay. I'll take it from you. But like because like that's something too, is that like one thing that we have to talk about, like looking at like the gold ETF, like it went live and then it tanked hard for a long time before it really rocketed up. There's a possibility that like the Bitcoin ETFs and everything else, like it follows a similar kind of like trajectory. Because like one thing that me and the boys at work talk about quite consistently is that we geopolitically and macroeconomically, we are at a kind of like we look like we're coming to a head on a number of different bubbles and a number of different like recessionary times with regards to like how bonds are acting, how these different countries are going. The fact that Germany just said that they were going to double down on like the renewable energy, like after Trump's executive orders got signed. Yeah, that'll be great for Europe and the German bond market. Like just completely asinine stuff. And then, by the way, on that topic, China said that they're going to be pushing for lower carbon emissions and everything. That is an absolute joke. They're trying to pick up on the virtue signal opportunity while Trump's coming in. And I'm like, I don't think that's going to go the way you guys think it's going to go. Like, and like just all these different dynamics with like, and then you got the demographics with like Japan, like all the doom stuff that I talk about. Like there's a possibility of it provides the environment that Jordan's talking about, or like I'm also looking forward to, of where like it's like, oh yeah, we got the strategic patrol or strategic Bitcoin reserve live, and then we're going into a global recession for a couple of years. Perfect time. But
yeah,
that's when it's going to hurt the most. But that's going to be when somebody like the United States of America is going to be filling up that strategic reserve, is during those kinds of moments. But it might not come. They might be nibbling at it every second, like Michael Saylor did.
I would really recommend people listen to Whitney Webb on TFTC describing kind of how Bitcoin is going to be used by TradFi to kind of gobble up all the liquidity that is going to be necessary to like whether it's smoothing out this transition or making for a softer landing. Or TradFi is going to use this as a financial tool. And by this, I mean Bitcoin. They're going to use Bitcoin as a financial tool to basically like kind of cover up all their losses, because they're going to just say, look, we're holding this Bitcoin that is now worth X amount against our balance sheets. And then meanwhile, the US government can do that against its balance sheets. And really, did it do anything? Did it change any of its behavior? Maybe it'll have to start at that point because it's going to start being backed by something that's finite. But they kind of get to take all their debt and just like wash it away and carry on like nothing else happened and sit on a bunch of Bitcoin.
And there's two reasons for that. One is that Bitcoin is the first asset that we have where like the more liquidity that pours into it, it doesn't have physical consequences in the meat space, right? Because like whether it's something like mortgage-backed securities, which are based on real estate, or like something like gold, or something like stocks and equities, like those all have physical consequences for like their appreciation in price, right? Because like like we're seeing in the US and like what our northern friends up in Canada have been dealing with. Like you get too much money flowing into real estate, it starts to cause a lot of problems for your country and your people. You get too much money flowing into gold, you start getting into like a lot of problems, because then it starts impacting matters of industry with regards to electronics and space travel. And like you get too much money flowing into some of these companies and like equities like Nvidia, then they start funding things and doing stupid shit with their money to the where they make poor decisions, and then it negatively impacts the company, and then they got to start laying people off. So like when you have something like Bitcoin, it's a black hole for liquidity. It doesn't have there's no effect on the real world. And my second point is that because of that, this is another thing that Bitcoiners need to get really comfortable with. And if you haven't read Mark Goodwin's Bitcoin Dollar, I recommend you go read it, because he makes the same argument that I'm about to make, is that because of that aspect of Bitcoin, fiat currencies are going to be able to live longer and probably stronger because of that whole wiping, like overlaying of the debt. And people need to really come to terms with that. But one of the dynamics is that it's like because of like the asset with Bitcoin and because of like the generational wealth kind of like recycling of like you're getting the wealth transfer to some people with crazy ideas like us, that you're still going to be able to benefit a lot, but the fiat currency conversation is still going to be very alive and well.
It's funny you brought up Mark Goodwin, because he was also on that TFTC episode with Whitney Webb. It was just, I mean, there's a lot of things you could go out there and watch and read and listen to. I would highly recommend, after this show is over, you go check that one out.
I also recommend that.
And hats off to almost the 1,000 people that are here between here and Zapstream. Man, you guys are absolutely awesome. I wanted to kind of get into this a little bit in terms of your understanding of the fiat currency maybe being extended here. Have you guys been tracking this or even looking at there was a case that came out of the Supreme Court on January 14th, Moore versus Alliant Credit Union. Have you guys seen this, and are you tracking it?
Negative.
Right. Let me give you guys case background and the ruling, and we can kind of go from there. This is a case that has attracted a ton of attention, and I don't know if it's all good or not, but the case background centers around a dispute between a guy named Moore and the Alliant Credit Union concerning foreclosure proceedings on Moore's property. Moore challenged the validity of the mortgage contract, arguing that the use of fiat currency as a consideration in the contract was unconstitutional. The Supreme Court ruling, according to various online sources, on January 14th of this year, the Supreme Court allegedly issued a decision in favor of Moore. This ruling is claimed to have declared the use of fiat currency in mortgage contracts as unconstitutional, thereby potentially invalidating such contracts and impacting broader financial practices involving fiat currency. However, specific details from the official court records are not clearly documented or accessible for public disclosure.
That's insane.
I just don't even understand how that makes sense. Like, I'm not a fan of fiat currency, but like, here's a fiat currency that the government says is legal tender, but then it's, I think there's a lot of things going on that are unconstitutional. I just don't like, what is the...
So Article 1, Section 10, I believe it is, of the Constitution is the ability of the government to mint money from either gold or silver, and that's it. Like that's all that's in the Constitution.
What the old dollars used to say.
Yeah, exactly right. So if that's the case, and he's claiming he's got Fourth Amendment protection and 13th and 14th Amendment protection on this happening because this is not part of the it's basically unconstitutional to have contracts that are made in fiat money. This is one of those things where if this catches on and keeps moving, and you start to lump this in with the idea that we're going to have an external, revenue service versus an internal revenue service that we've heard, the president talk about. And I'm not saying like this is a bunch of hopium. Like, don't get me wrong. But it does seem to me, it's kind of said earlier, this is that, guy that's got a little bit of the white pill. And I feel like, maybe we've crested a little bit. We've got maybe a battle or two that, have been fought and won, and they're picking up some steam. Like this idea could be very prevalent. This is one of those ideas in a world where people are absolutely through with the government, through with these ridiculous banks and their usury, basically slave driven, usury system that they made slaves out of everybody. This is one of those ideas that could catch fire very quickly. And if it catches fire fast enough, then banks become extremely insolvent very quickly.
Yeah, but I mean, man, I feel like there's a lot of danger here too.
Yeah.
If all of a sudden you just say all these contracts that any contract in fiat is now like null and void. I mean, how does that? I mean, that to me, I picture mandibles. I picture like the economy also just crumbling because like how do you have rule of law at that point? Like if you wanted to throw a wrench into the system, like no matter how screwed up the system is, that and it might need a lot of fixing, if you just like wipe it out, all the like second and third order effects that start following on, like if that's your goal to like bring something down, I feel like that's one way to wipe out a lot of debt too, is just hey, we're reset.
So and that kind of gets to the point, right? Is like this idea that we want Bitcoin to we want to be on a Bitcoin standard eventually. There's a lot of kinetic energy in a spring that's unwound too fast, and if you want to kind of draw the parallels between the U.S. economy running on dollars and then switching, or say being unwound into something else. If you just chop that thing off, there's not enough Bitcoin, gold, silver, that is out there that is readily available for people to trade. So you can't buy Bitcoin with any of these things. You're not going to an exchange and offering eggs from your chicken. You're not, and that's where basically, humanity and society would be if that's, if you unwound this that quickly and everybody's like, I think I'm done paying the bank. I think this, establishes a precedent, and now we've got enough numbers. If enough people did it, you'd obviously have you have the power as people to do it. Doing it too quickly is one of those things that I think is absolutely disastrous for society.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Jordan, before I get going?
No, I mean that's I mean, on one hand it sounds like, oh yeah, that's awesome, that's exactly what we want, but then it's like, all right, where does that take us? Like that could be just as like the thing that we all want, if we get it right now, could be the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
I think I think that it's interesting the Supreme Court is like even ruling on this is causing I mean, this is an example. It's causing conversation to be had around the constitutionality of the currency that we use.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is all part of like the bigger plan to further digitize the US dollar. And I think that the Bitcoin strategic reserve plays a role in that. I think that they're gonna build up these coffers of Bitcoin for the nation. Whether they end up buying some from Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy or not, like we'll find out. But correct me if I'm wrong. I believe Coinbase was a part of that strategic Bitcoin reserve strategy, right? So if they're going to be in their part of that, well, did you guys see that Coinbase has made it so that they have loans that are live now that are paid out in USDC? And there's almost like no limitations on like you get the loan instantaneously, and I think there's almost no interest you pay on it. Like this, I think they're building up like this kind of they're doing like the testing now to get to the point of whether they use USDC or not for the CBDC that we all know is coming, because it is coming. There's like there is no government in existence now or in the future that is not going to try and roll something out like a CBDC, because that's like the ultimate intel, like populist behavioral control and manipulation honeypot. The CBDC is coming. They're doing all this testing to get things figured out to how they want to roll things out, whether they use a USDC or they make their own that is started off as a private enterprise that becomes like a public-private partnership, which could be USDC, like I said. By the way, since we have almost 1,000 people watching right now, for those that are new that don't know, USDC is owned by Circle, which is it's in the wing of BlackRock. And so that's not really surprising either. So like a lot of this stuff is kind of, it's lining up in my eyes. I think that like they're doing all this work to prepare for like that conversation of people like, well, fiat currencies aren't like constitutional anyway. It's like, well, they're not really even fiat currencies because they're all digital, and here's your CBDC. So like we can get around it. Oh, and by the way, we're going to make it so that like your utility bills or your taxes are 30% off if you pay in this. So it's like, oh, well, it's constitutional and I get a discount. Like, yeah, I'm going to use it. It's happening. There's no way it doesn't. So yeah, exciting stuff though.
Jordan, you want to say something there?
No, I was just going to actually say I'm going to have to cut this one short, guys. Maybe I'll try to jump on later if you guys are still going.
Say hi to the family.
We appreciate you coming.
Hey, Ross is free. Step one, mission accomplished. Let's go for the next target.
All right, Jordan. Man, appreciate you being here. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll catch you later, man. Perfect. Now it's just us. We don't need Jordan interrupting my ranting.
Hogging up that screen. He's right over the episode 70 DJ. Oh, good times, Mike. No, it's always fun having other personalities on the show and kind of bouncing ideas around, because we're all going through this weird consciousness together and seeing it from different angles. That's one thing I really appreciate, especially about this community, is like we're all kind of peering in our own consciousness from different angles on this stuff that's happening, and the minds in the Bitcoin veteran space are phenomenal. I mean, I know we have a dark sense of humor. Not everything's funny to everybody out there, but there is at least a group of guys out here who's got a ton of experience in this world that are looking at stuff, trying to make it as light as possible, but really kind of weighing it in terms of full gravity and the ability to dig into different areas and have expertise in those. I think that's probably one of our greatest strengths. Is there's just so much brain power that is amassed in such a small space that it doesn't matter where it is or what it is. Somebody's got an explanation, some sort of explanation at a very high level, and man, it's fantastic. So if you want to be part of that, bitcoinveterans.org, you can go over there and sign up. We will get you into the chats.
And if you guys don't think we're funny, fuck you, you're wrong. Okay, just saying.
Get out
here. But so like, what was I mean, the other interesting thing that's strictly Bitcoin related we were talking about was like the Bitcoin mining stuff, but that's like with Texas. For those that didn't see or didn't hear earlier, Shane and I were talking about. I had heard off another Bitcoin podcast that the Digital Asset Research Institute, which I don't know who the hell they are, so whatever. But they put out a report claiming that Texas saved $18 billion last year in the year 2024 thanks to Bitcoin mining, which is insane.
For a state, $18 billion to save $18 billion just because you're maxing out a grid most of the time. Like, that is incredible to say. And then, we were talking a little bit about it. I think this was all, pre-show, was you made the comment of like, do you know how many lives that could have saved, or, just power interruptions in general that just don't happen? I imagine if you live in those areas, you go, man, our grid's been pretty good lately. Like if you really think about
it, especially right now, like for those that aren't aware, like Galveston, Texas, and Baton Rouge are going through what it was 10 inches of snow.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. I mean, I've got family down there in Louisiana, deep South Louisiana, Gulf Coast, and boy, I mean, 7, 8, 9, 10 inches reported. And that's just already, like, it's still snowing in a bunch of these areas down there because it's so damn cold, and they're just getting just normal precip that's coming up, and it's freezing. And
meanwhile, Iowa's had like 2. I had like 2 inches this winter.
Dude, yeah, I was gonna say North Georgia, it hasn't snowed. Like, we had a little bit of like slush and shit that one day out here when they just absolutely ruined a bunch of kids, hopes and dreams. But Yeah, man, the Gulf Coast has gotten more snow this year than at least the Appalachian Mountains here in Georgia.
Speaking of executive orders, that's Gulf of America now. So just keep that in mind. It makes more sense. I mean, as far as like if we're gonna talk about like continental and like major geographical landmarks referring to like specific hemispheres, the Gulf of America makes more sense than the Gulf of Mexico, in my opinion. So
you're not wrong.
Sorry, Mexico, but you're gonna lose here too. And speaking of Mexico losing, we should probably talk about how troops are now capable of being positioned on the southern border. Ooh, thoughts on birth? Okay,
I was going to say like this is kind of a dual pronged. All right. So let's do both of these. So of the, I guess 200 executive orders, border security has been a big one for Trump, and he's got a few of them out there already. He declared the border a national emergency. Military personnel, National Guard are already being sent to the border. There is a reinstatement to, or I should say, reinstatement of the remain in Mexico policy. Basically, look, you're not coming here. We don't know what you need to do, but Mexico, if it's a problem for you, for people who are immigrating from South and Central America through Mexico, and they have to stay in Mexico, that's Mexico's problem. That's a big problem for Mexico. So Mexico,
which sorry guys, but it should be like, oh, like you're trying to be claim the victim, but you're allowing all these people to come up through your southern border from the Darien Gap up all the way through your entire country just so they can plop down here. Like, no, sorry, go fuck yourself. Like they need to go back. Yeah. Like you need to be turning them away there if you don't want them crossing through your country to begin with.
Yeah. Another one, he suspended refugees resettlement here in the United States, which I think is brilliant in terms of, all these wars and everything that go on. What do they do? Like, first and foremost, they're great places for people who do child trafficking. They just disappear people that, can't be explained all the time. There are then obviously refugees, that are created. And if you don't know, the same people that rhyme with shoes have policies out there in their own words in front of crowds and cameras and everything else, talking about moving everybody who's a refugee out of Sahara desert, or like Saharan Africa, the Middle East, and all these war-torn places, and moving them into places like America and Europe. And you're like, well, we'll kind of see what's going on here, right? Like it's
maybe build up some areas closer to home for them so they don't have to just be, transplanted. Like that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And you could make more money doing it.
Yeah. And our foreign policy should also be one of those where we're not creating the people that need to flee countries instead of like the last 20 years. So I think, I think Trump is actually aligned on those couple of things. More in terms of the, I guess, border security and immigration. He attempted to end the birthright citizenship for children, undocumented immigrants through this. And this is, I think, what he was alluding to. Likely to face legal challenges due to constitutional protections. Let's talk about this for a second. I don't know where you come down on this, Mike, but I'm of the mind that, listen, if you're not coming to the United States first and foremost legally, and you have a child here, like, sorry, man, like that's one of those things where like you roll the fucking dice depending on who was here, who was in power. And now that this guy's been selected, and most of the people here are going to go, no, like we're good. You don't just get to violate the law, come here, download a baby, and then all of a sudden you and your entire family get to stay. I may have lost Mike. He looks like he's frozen. So I'll keep going here. And then he's designated certain cartels and migrant gangs as foreign terrorist groups. This is one of those things where I have a little bit of an issue. I don't want to say, like, and hear me out, because I know there's probably people out there maybe flipping out right now. Designating cartels and migrant gangs as foreign terrorist organizations. We've got to consider a lot of what American foreign policy has been down in Central and South America. If you haven't read the book, the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, I highly, highly recommend it. What happens and what has happened throughout history. I'm going to add Mike to the stage again. There he is.
That was stupid. Sorry, like this crashed on me while you were mid rant.
Now, so
I lose you.
well, I don't know where you lost me, but I was.
You had just gotten started about like the constitutionality of illegal immigrants having kids here.
Yeah, so I had already moved on because you weren't here. I needed to keep going. But yeah, I had kind of talked about, hey, listen, you don't get to violate the laws and then just come here and download babies and then get to stay. Like, that's not okay. Like, that's in most other countries, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I mean, obviously the Supreme Court will have their day of like kind of like hashing it out to figure out whether they think that the founders would have landed on this, but I don't think that they could have foreseen a possibility of where other countries in the world are directing refugees and immigrants to emigrate to our place illegally to try and weaken us. Like, at that time, I think that strategy would not, like, that wouldn't even be conceivable. It's like, wait, you mean sending us more manpower would weaken us? Like, that doesn't make any sense, So like, I agree with you. Like, but now it still needs to be determined what the constitutional aspect is. Is it only like, because in my opinion, I think the Constitution should only apply to the citizens of the nation. Like, our Constitution doesn't apply to everybody on the planet. Right.
Well, yeah, I think you need to kind of like parse this one, because I think there's some there's things in here like rights, right? I think anybody who comes here has the right to speak. If you're here legally within the United States, I don't think,
argue your position. You still have the right to argue your position, but keep in mind you are here illegally. So let's hear it.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that, because I think anybody can add to the human experience. I just think it's one of those things where, like, listen, until we're a country that doesn't strip people through force and coercion from their property and their wealth, as long as these people are forced to be, paying into something like this, then, well, guess what, man? Like, they have first say in how they're going to be governed. And if that means they want to be exclusive and they don't want other people coming here and, being part of this without actually really buying in, and the constitutionality around this, there's a different understanding, and I don't want to bore people to death. I know I'm, kind of one of those constitutional autists. But it's one of those things where migration and immigration wasn't a power of the federal government. Standardization of becoming an American citizen was, and that was because they didn't want certain states inflating their population so that they had a greater voice in Congress, right? Like, that's what it all boiled down to. So yeah, like the standards of what becomes a citizen, what doesn't, that's set by the United States government. So in terms of constitutionality, I really don't think they're going to face a ton there. But yeah, are we going to need manpower in the United States? Yes. But here's the other side of this: is what we really, really need to change in the United States is the separation of state and education, or indoctrination for that matter.
And culture, which is all downstream of that.
And unless we, if we were really serious about this, we would be spending billions and billions of dollars that we spend on quote unquote education on things like STEM. Like, if we're not doing science, technology, math, and arts and things like that, then, and we've traded it for liberal arts, which is just, utter classic, right? It's like, you're not going to compete in the world stage with people who are going to be social workers and people who, have, female basket weaving, degrees. Like, no, guys, like, this is not it. We need people who are going to be fucking engineers, guys who are going to be, doctors and surgeons and highly trained. And when you look back at history, when you see guys like Benjamin Franklin writing at 13, 14 years old and, under pseudonyms and things like that, and how absolutely brilliant they were because they were homeschooled or they were schooled, in a local, decentralized area, like the night and day difference in terms of indoctrination and education is, I think, going to be highlighted. I hope highlighted, and at least attempted to start decentralizing that and breaking it up.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I could say anything that's like put it in better words than what you just said, but all I wanted to add was that the people that partied the most in college were the liberal arts degrees. That's all I wanted to say. And like, I mean, I was one of them for a couple of years. It's like, and it's because like that degree is a joke, and there's a reason why there is not a job out there that is looking for people with liberal arts degrees. It's because you don't actually learn anything of value with that degree. And it's like,
our buddy Eomar, man, good to have you out there in the crowd, man. He said, read the Constitutional Convention debates and the Anti-Federalist Papers and realize how dumb Americans have become. I would tell you, read the Anti-Federalists, just because those were the guys that were standing in the way of the
Thomas
guys.
Jefferson, right?
Dude, well, and the thing is he was an envoy to France during those years, and why he was, because he was absolutely an Anti-Federalist, right? And so, yeah, those guys.
He was also very anti-monocropping, if I remember correctly. He was very like regenerative agriculture, decentralized like power structures, like all of that. Like, well, sorry, Jeff, we didn't really listen to you.
Yeah, if you listen to the Anti-Federalists, the more decentralized we can become as a nation, the better. And I hope, Bitcoin veterans, we talk about decentralized freedom tech all the damn time, whether it's Bitcoin or Nostr, Meshtastic, whatever it is that makes our lives easier to communicate with each other, or in even emergency situations. Like that's the way everything works better, is when it's decentralized and you can put most of your time and effort into your local community where you need it most.
Yeah. I was trying to think of another executive order that I thought was exciting or interesting.
I wanted to cover the last one in this border security and immigration. I started kind of going down this path and kind of teased it a little bit before you came back in. It was he designated certain cartels and migrant gangs as foreign terrorist organizations. Yeah. This one is this is one of those where we needed to kind of take a breath and have a look at this from a more mature standpoint than the last 2 days.
Yeah, a little bit. Probably like one of the reasons, in my opinion, being I can't remember which special operator said it. I think it was probably Tim Kennedy or one of those guys that's been on the podcast circuit pretty aggressively the last 12 to 18 months. Like to their point, like this classification now means that like special forces, like the tip of the spear, are going to be capable and going to be getting planned to go into where those cartels make birth, which tends to be Mexico currently, which I follow some OSINT accounts on Twitter that are like, the violence down in Mexico is insane right now. And so that involves American operations going into Mexico, which we're going to ruffle some feathers. There's no might. Like, there's going to be people that aren't going to like us doing that. And it's also going to involve like countries like Colombia and down around South America, and like little less Argentina now, but like in those areas of where like what used to be El Salvador, because the fact that we've actually actively created these cartels in the last 50 years, taught them how to operate and organize their infrastructure so that they can, continue to flourish and find success. Because I'm also the resident like Operation Gladio expert here. Like, that's something that we did. I mean, everybody knows about ISIS and Al Qaeda. They're no different than the cartels. They're just in a different region of the world. So I think that's going to be particularly interesting. And I agree. I think there needs to be a lot more politic and dialogue over how things are going to be executed upon. Because like I said, we're going to be reaching into some people's back doors and their backyards and refrigerators. And if we do it without, making sure that we have consent first, it could be a little problematic.
Well, yeah. And in the case I was making earlier, and there's a long history here. There is a history that goes back decades and decades and decades. Some of the first glimpses into what we were doing illegally down there was around Contra, right? And so throughout the 70s, maybe even back into the 60s, this is George Herbert Walker Bush time period. This is a lot of those guys who came to power. This is the Dulleses. This is a lot
This
of
is
the guys
all
who are
Operation Gladio Network here.
yeah.
All of it.
This needs explaining to some people who are just like, yeah, fucking let's go kill, and make war now in Central and South America. Listen, guys, we've been making war in Central and South America for a long time, and this is coming from veterans who either have been there, who have best friends who have been down there, guys who have never come back from down there. We have been down in Central and South America doing what we do, whether it's clandestine, whether it's overt, whatever the case is, for a long time. So our American foreign policy has created a climate in Central and South American countries, a lot of them anyway, especially the ones that have extremely, resource-rich dirt, so to speak. We've been down there, and there's a great book. We talk about it quite a bit on the show. It's the Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And when you understand what the Federal Reserve, what the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund do, the IMF, in terms of going into countries and sweet talking or abusing their political system to install puppets, first and
A
foremost.
little bit of column A, a little bit of column B on that one.
Yeah, depending on how stubborn they are.
Yeah.
Right, as they start to wield their force in these areas, and these are a lot of times Americans, and sometimes they're Brits, but they're definitely Americans. And when they go down there and they start to push our weight around, what they're doing is promising something that they can never deliver on. Basically, they're saying, hey, we're going to come in, we're going to build your infrastructure. This is going to mean lots of money for your country. This is going to lift your population out of the muck and the squalor that is just the nature of human beings, and it's going to start elevating your country. But what happens is once these guys sign on to these loans can't be paid back in the local currency. They have to be paid back in US dollars. And that's problematic because obviously the US dollar is inflationary. And as it's inflationary, it means the currencies that are pegged to the US dollar are even more inflationary. So if we jack, $8 trillion into the ecosystem, and let's just say, inflation goes up by 8 to 10%. That's probably a correction in some countries, sometimes 10 to 30%, if not more, in terms of an inflationary reaction from their currency to ours. So what happens is they can never, ever pay off these debts. Meanwhile, all the money that's allocated to that country in terms of debt for building infrastructure actually goes to corporations. It doesn't go to anybody who's on the ground. It doesn't go to the local population. It doesn't go to any of those things. So when we start to look at this and go, all right, we're building this out, you can't repay your debt, and we're inflating our currency, and this actually goes to corporations and not your people. Now what happens?
And those corporations are also American, like Standard Oil or Halliburton or DPW.
Yep. And so at that point, now they're going, hey, you guys are out of money. Time's up. And the only way out of this is to take on more debt. And this is where the conflict really starts a lot of times. So let's say a president is, duly elected by his local people, which in a lot of places are states. They're like no bigger than states, sometimes smaller than states here in the United States. And it's a much fairer election than what happens here in the United States a lot of times, just so you understand. So when somebody who wants to stand up for their country wins the population over, gets into office and says, no, IMF, World Bank, and the Federal Reserve and America corporations and the rest of you guys can fuck off with your debt. Like, we don't want any more of your debt. Then they send in the jackals. And the jackals are guys who will take out, family members if they need to from the United States. This is literally CIA. This is clandestine, special operations and everything else. Then if that doesn't go far enough and they have an army that's going to stand behind them, you're looking at color revolution and then war with the U.S. military in terms of escalation.
And you also label the leader in that administration as communist, because that's the great big boogeyman that all the American people, thanks to the Cold War, will, rally behind. We got to defend the world from losing democracy because, communism, even though, don't get me wrong, I hate communism, but we're also not a democracy. We are a constitutional republic, so you can get that democracy language out of the conversation to begin with.
Right. Much of the time, what's happening in those areas as well is as we're structuring this debt and pushing our weight around, economically, and through force and coercion, through, agency types, and then also the military. These guys, in terms of foreign organizations, are also making sure that this, gigantic satanic pedo ring has enough drugs in it to move in and out of countries with underage kids and take them to parties like Diddy parties or the Epstein Island or Oprah Winfrey or Harvey Weinstein or any of these other schmucks that are running, kids into places that they shouldn't be, and then drugging people, whether it's the kids or the people who are attending. Yeah, the adults who are compromised and hand selected for their pornography watching habits, right? Like, you're starting to paint a picture here. We're starting to understand exactly what's happened to Central and South America, to where these things are not only profitable but enriching for those people. So in a lot of ways, we have created the gangs and the cartels in Central and South America. Nobody wants to talk about it. I imagine there is a ton of, let's just call it confidential, at least classified information, that if we actually understood in terms of Operation Gladio, the amount of drugs and drug cartels and everything else that they've set up in these places so that maybe someday that they could go to war with them. Here we are at that moment now. And that's got to be a moment for pause, for God's sakes.
Well, and I think this might also be what you're getting at too, is that with this kind of like declaration of war against the cartels, it also opens up the opportunity for us to keep that machine going. Because we could use it on one hand. If we think like intel operatives or operators, we could use it on one hand to destroy the systems that are already demonized currently, like the Sinaloa cartel and those guys. But then at the same time, with the backside of the hand, while we're reaching into one country to go after that cartel, we can be creating the next one on the backside, which is precisely what we did with ISIS when we were fighting Al-Qaeda and the Taliban, right? Yeah. And it's a very natural kind of dynamic. Like, you go in, you kill some locals. The locals that were related to those individuals are going to rise up in anger against you. So you just happen to have somebody there that the locals don't know are a part of your organization. They're sitting there kind of like getting in their ear, like, hey, like we should group together and start like fighting against these guys. Oh, well, we're going to need like some funding to do that. It's like, well, we got these cocoa plants over here. We start putting that together and start, running it up there to sell it and bring it back and start like getting some arms and everything. That's how it starts. And from there, it's just you just keep the machine lubed, and it's going to carry itself with momentum to the point of where we are now, like where every other of these organizations is gone. It's all business.
If I could speak any sense to President Trump and Pete Hegseth and the rest of those guys who were making these kind of decisions,
especially Gabbard.
Yeah. My guidance would be this: if we haven't learned over the past 20 plus years what creates more extremist people, who are more radicalized, people who hate America more than anything, it's violence. It's this, this really ridiculous, stance that we have towards war. I think we have discounted it. I think we take it so lightly, and we've absolutely destroyed the idea that we are sending men and women in to do absolutely terrible things. And those terrible things happen to families. They don't just happen in a vacuum. They don't just happen to bad guys. And, that's not what war is. There's a great quote out there that, it says war doesn't, decide who's good and bad. It just decides who's left. And at the end of the day, going into Central and South America, these are our neighbors. We literally share a landmass with these people, and there are some lines on maps that divide these places. But in reality, there's a lot more that we have in common with so much of the let's just Latin, Latino, whatever we're calling ourselves these days. Like, there's a lot that we have in common in terms of family practices and in cases of religion and work ethic, you name it. Like there is so much synergy there to do what we did for the past 20 years in the Middle East and start that in Central and South America. I think that is one of the absolute worst ways to kick off a presidency that you could possibly have. And the idea that you didn't do it during your first 4 years, you didn't make war, please reconsider, doing anything hot down in Central and South America. That's, I guess I'd leave it there.
Well, that's been something that, you and I have talked about and that I have argued for years, and I'm going to continue to argue, is that I think recent conflicts with like Ukraine and what's going on with Israel and Syria and everything is just further evidence of like, we have no business being there. We need to get out of Dodge, let them, like, it's their land. Let them figure out what they're going to do with it, what they're going to do with each other. In my opinion, stop funding them, first of all, which by the way, that's another EO I wanted to talk about. Like if you have those clips like to share after this rant, like how, like, we said we're going to stop foreign aid, but it's like, no, not really all of it. But we'll yeah, we'll get to that in a second. But I think that like it's further evidence that the U.S. needs to stop meddling in the Middle East. Let them have their land and do what they want with it. We need to be working with our neighbors, which would be Central and South America. They are our neighbors. They are our family. We need to be working with them, which means helping them actually develop, which would involve, because there's already a lot of Bitcoin mining going on down there. Let's start like leaning into that more. We'll help them build up the energy generation, like infrastructure and capacity, not like Confessions of an Economic Hitman, because we've got Bitcoin now. So we don't need to do that nonsense. And then we help them be able to provide reliable power. And when you do that for a community and a civilization, power intensity is cool. But if you don't have reliable power, you can't really do anything meaningful. Like you can't do research and development. You can't store food, because like what good is a refrigerator if it's going to only operate for 12 hours of the day and you don't know which 12 hours or for how long? Like that does zero good. You can't really teach a class if you don't have the capability or the access to power to be able to, like, if you need a PowerPoint or if you need lighting to be able to like teach a lesson or whatever. Like the reliability of power is the biggest one, because like once you provide the reliability of power, then you can continue to expand and bring down the cost of power and increase the access and the breadth and the depth of it. Then you're talking about getting into a modern society. And we like the condition that Central and South American countries are in right now is not a whole lot different from Africa, meaning that the Americans start doing this with our neighbors. They can leapfrog the last 100 years of development that currently takes up a lot of space here in the US. We can make South America start looking like Wakanda. That would be insane. That's a future that, as an American and like a veteran, I want to work towards that future. We don't need to be going to war with the cartels. Like you start doing this, the cartels are going to see where the money's at, and they're going to change their business practices anyway. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they're going to stop producing drugs. Like they've got their hooks in. Yeah, they're the market. They've got their hooks in. They're going to do it. But I do think it's possible to kind of like get things to shift in very positive and hopeful ways, and that's coming from the Doom Lord here, guys. So well, that's big.
And to your point, as more and more people get introduced to this Bitcoin culture, I think there is a different understanding of what you're putting in your body as well, right? And so as this continues to perforate, and hopefully, the global South, and right now it looks like the global South has a lot more reason to adopt a hard currency that nobody else can stop and nobody else can screw with, right? So if Bitcoin culture can permeate these areas, and this is obviously what we would love to see, Bitcoin needs to be adopted faster in these areas. So if that happens, then hopefully people start going, oh yeah, you know what, man, maybe we shouldn't be doing this and putting this into our bodies or putting it into other bodies. And culture changes quite a bit in terms of incentive that way. But I think we've got, geez, Mike, we've already gone, it's almost an hour and a half already. It's already 10:23 here on the East Coast. There's a few out there. Do you have any off the top of your head that you wanted to get to before we wrap it up tonight?
I think
I got a laundry list over
It
here.
should be. I think that first clip from Redacted, I believe, should be the one that I was talking about with the funding. If it's not, we can play it. We can still talk about it anyway.
Yeah, let's do it. Let me see if
But
this is it.
that one's particularly important because I did not hear about the specific executive order that talked about foreign funding, and then the follow up here is explicitly important for the shoes conversation.
Yeah, let's go.
At me, bro.
All right, let's talk about January 6th pardons, shall we?
No, that's the wrong one. Boy, our producer is not on it today.
Well, that's another that's one we can talk about real quick too while you're getting that clip. So the one thing that I did want to talk about with the January 6th pardons is that people on the internet were getting frustrated that the pardons came out 12 minutes ago and the guys are still in their prison cells. It's like, yeah, guys, I get it. Like, we want them out. There's a process. There's paperwork that needs to be done to make sure that it is documented that they are no longer in prison. That would be probably the most important kind of paperwork that we need cleared up before they actually get out.
Right.
So just give these. Even though I don't appreciate the privatized jail sector, we still need to give them some grace to actually do their job so they can follow through these executive orders. They're getting out. So let the people just get them out.
Yeah. And do it right so that they can never be recalled to jail because
do it properly.
Change, right? Yeah. If you
like,
ask them,
you guys didn't document that those guys were released from their prison cells. It says here that they're still here. They need to go back.
Yeah. If you would ask Democrats if President Trump would have ever been President Trump again, boy, yeah, there's surprises out there. So let's add this guy and we'll get into her now. That's phrasing. Sorry, guys.
Is that we're just pointing out to you, but you can find them yourself at whitehouse.gov. Let's see. President Trump enabled the military to participate in the defense of U.S. national borders. He paused all foreign aid for at least 90 days. Can we have a collective woot about that? Paused all
the whitest white girl woot I've ever heard.
Except to Israel.
They was going to carve out except to Israel, which Israel, again, has a budget surplus and a space program. So they actually have money growing interest in a bank, billions. We have $36 trillion in debt in the United States, but we can cut off all foreign aid for 90 days. Except to Israel.
Where do you see that? Because it's not in the foreign aid.
It's because, and the way that the Trump administration says, it's because it's tied to treaties. It's not tied to just straight foreign aid. So they're blaming it on treaties, quote unquote treaties. That's why they can't pull back on the foreign aid to Israel, I guess, and Egypt also.
So how about we take a look at the treaties that are.
2 seconds.
I missed that actually. So
I didn't see it.
I've got it in 2 places. Go ahead, Mike.
Let's talk about why we have treaties that are providing an allowance to Israel. Like why do those exist?
Well, I think I have an idea. It's because everybody in Congress, minus like a Thomas Massey and a couple others, I think there's actually over 300 seats that are people who have received money from AIPAC, which is in Congress, there are over 300 seats. I think it's actually closer to 325 seats, and you guys can go out there and pull the figures. But it's over 325 seats of members of Congress and the Senate that have taken money from AIPAC. These people have handlers, as referenced by Thomas Massey on Tucker Carlson. So if these people are the people who get told by handlers what they can and cannot do and can and cannot say, I imagine there might be some dirt and blackmail based on, why they're taking this in the first place. Secondly, these are the people, especially in the Senate, that install lead bureaucrats. And when you install lead bureaucrats who make all sorts of, bureaucratic regulations and things like that, and, the senators sign treaties, when you are absolutely owned and operated by a foreign nation, Israel in this case, and Trump's people are a bunch of Israel bootlickers as well. This is where we get into that place where you're like, well, we know why they do, because if they don't, they get exposed. And if they get exposed, then they're possibly going to jail for, pornography with kids, whether it was,
and right there, Yep, right there is where I wanted to be like, oh, and that Operation Gladio breakdown that you gave us is how it ties right back into where we are right now with those 300 individuals, because that is one of the byproducts of the network, is you get all that juicy blackmail material to keep people under your thumb. They're just like, but the secret doesn't have to get out as long as you just take this little bribe and then you do what we ask.
Oh, and by the way, we're going to make you wealthy, and we're going to make you powerful, and we're going to make you famous. You pick whatever you want. You just do what we tell you to do, and we got you back.
Do the right thing or get paid.
Also, we own the courts, right?
Yeah.
We own the courts. We own the entire tier, two-tiered judicial system out there. Like, I mean, it's one of those things where if you're a narcissist and you let the power go to your head, instead of cutting it off at the root and going, you know what, I screwed up, man. I gotta go fix my life. And this is obviously not the position for me. I can't do this shit anymore. And like, no, they just keep going. And
yeah,
that's it, man. It's one of the grossest things. And the fact that they're actually supplying even larger, munitions. Like, there's no Gaza left, man. Like, there's nothing left over there. And now we're sending over the 2,000-pound JDAMs. Like, for God's sakes, it just.
Yeah, because they need more of those.
Yeah,
it's like it's insane, dude. That's the unfortunate thing. Like, and this goes back to like another like Bitcoin topic that we talk about quite often, is like the reason that they're capable of getting away with all this stuff, with burying the asterisk content within all of these different bills and these different executive orders and everything, because they're playing in the field of technicalities, right? Like that's how they're doing it. The reason they're capable of doing it is because we have a global population that's stuck on the fiat hamster wheel, because the currency is getting debased out from underneath all of these different countries, whether you're American or you're English or you're French or you're German or you're El Salvadorian or you're Brazilian or you're Mexican. You're all falling prey to the same system, just on different aspects of the wheel. And because the currency is being debased, all of us have to work harder and longer in order to get even a pittance of what we should be getting paid, because at the same time, wages have been stagnant for over 50 years. And here in America, the H-1B system has been getting used as part of that, because they're promising Americans 50% of the wage that is part of the market, but then they're giving immigrants the actual full deal, so that the Americans that were born here are not getting paid their like rightful dues. All this entire system is like feeding into itself, to where it ultimately results in a population that is too tired, too hungry, because the food's getting debased as well, too overworked. And because they're overworked and too tired and too hungry, they're stuck, getting addicted to TikTok and watching Netflix, because
it's a dopamine hit.
It's a dopamine hit, but if you're if you're exhausted working some terrible, shitty fiat job for 8 to 12 hours a day, like, I don't blame you. Like, you gotta have some serious motivation to get out. And that's why, like, the people that get out are the 1%ers. Like, everyone else it's a lot easier, and it's still in it. I mean, it's logical to pick up the nihilistic hedonism of just like, well, this sucks. I'm in a situation that's kind of a tar pit, so I might as well just try and make the best of what I've got here. So I'm going to do so with a little bit of, booger sugar and some alcohol, so I feel better. And like that, and that's that. And well, then you end up with a slew of other problems. But like, that's what people need to understand, is like, if you want to get out from the system, you have to start kind of like manipulating the system to be able to like support your, escape hatch. And a lot of, like, for most people, the best strategy is going to be just like dripping a little drip savings into Bitcoin for a couple of years, and you might be able to like make something of it after that.
I think this is a great place to talk about this and kind of wrap the show up.
Okay.
I was probably in my mid 30s when I had this conversation with myself. I'd seen a recession come and go in 2009. A lot of people had lost their jobs. Luckily, I was fairly insulated from that. I was young. It was underpaid, perfect person to continue in the organization. A lot of hunger to do good things and all that fun stuff. But, seeing neighbors lose their houses in terms of, the economy crashing, losing jobs, not wanting to hold on to the houses. I started to have that, that thought, and I was already questioning things a lot. And I said, who are the guys out there that are absolutely still killing it in recessions, right? Like who do I need to, have mentor me? Who do I need to look up to, and who do I need to learn from in this existence, so that I don't have to worry about this kind of stuff anymore? The kind of money that you just, it's fuck you money at the end of the day. And what I, came to very quickly is people who understand money, like really understand money, people who understand it, inside and out, backwards and forwards. Those are the guys that are insulated against the ups and downs of the market. And not only are they insulated against it, they're thriving in times where a lot of people are broke and don't have a pot to piss in. And so I started going down this rabbit hole, and lo and behold, obviously cryptocurrencies were out there. Bitcoin was out there. I'd heard of it a long time ago and, never really thought about it. It was, something that I didn't understand, first and foremost. If it was digital, I was like, digital currency sounds like the most unattractive thing to put your wealth in, because it can be manipulated. And over time, and thanks to, some amazing people, and just kind of some shout outs to Safadina Moose and to Svetsky and a bunch of other people who have written, some amazing books, and that I had, encounters in person with. They were like, dude, Bitcoin only. Stop fucking around. Stop being dumb. Get in here and learn this thing. And so I took that to heart. And I got to tell you, this was probably around 2017 that I started into it. I climbed Mount Stupid like everybody else did. And, by 2019, when these guys were like, look, this is what you need to pay attention to. This is, maybe some voices you need to listen to. And thanks to Guy Swan as well. Big shout out to Guy. This is the community that taught me Bitcoin. And when I mean the hours and hours and hours, whether it's books, whether it's podcasts, whether it was conversations like this with guys like Mike, or the rest of the Bitcoin veterans, it changes something in you. And as it changed in me, the more education I had, the more conviction I had. And, now it's to the point where I don't have to worry about things. If I don't have to have a career where I jump up at, 6 o'clock in the morning and run off and, and spend the entire day away from kids and family and doing those things, or running around, like that's not a thing that I have to worry about anymore. So I would highly encourage you, if you're new to Bitcoin, if you're just hearing this for the first time, study it. And if you have money that's in this fiat system that is a hamster wheel that's just trying to enslave you for more and more and more debt, so that you don't have any of that time with your kids and your family, man, try something new. Try learning something like Bitcoin. And I'm telling you, this crowd out here, bitcoinveterans.org, there is a number of guys out here that are just chomping at the bit to tell you what they know about Bitcoin. And I'm going to tell you right now, it is a lot of the smartest guys with the most drive that I have ever met. And they're happy to do it. So the more you can learn, the more you can study, the more you can ask questions, this is going to change your life. And here's the secret. You buy it, you hold it, you don't have to trade it. There's no ups and downs. You're not looking for yield. You just buy it and hold it and let it go. In 4 years, it'll change your life. In 8 years, it will absolutely revolutionize everything that you do. And I mean that, like, it is on course to do some record-breaking things. Shane, is it going to go above, 100,000? Yes. For infinity, Bitcoin is going to buy more and more. It's going to have more and more purchasing power over time. We talk about it, very little on this show in terms of what is the Bitcoin price, because we don't really care, because it's not for today. It's for later on when we're on a Bitcoin standard. But if you need it in the meantime and you want to use it and you stack enough, at some point, do it. Say, fuck off. I'm going to do whatever the hell I want for the rest of my life. I'm going to enjoy it with my wife and kids, and I'm going to leave a legacy behind. That's my Bitcoin story. And I think there's a lot of guys out there like it. It's, kind of a matter of, hey, where are you in terms of having a little bit of time to dedicate this? Can you listen to a show on the way back and forth to work? Can you look up some websites? Can you stop doom scrolling and pick up a book and read through it, or at least listen to it while you're doing chores around the house?
My big thing is like, I mean, I just told Mel the other night that like one of my major goals for the family is to get to the point of where you can afford to take a year off and travel the country with your kids and like give them like a, because like, I mean, we intend to like do homeschooling too, but like being able to travel the country with your kids while have the freedom to homeschool them, to teach them like real stuff, like the real aspects of history, like we've been talking about some of the things that like I think are just fascinating. I mean, like the conversation tonight has been freaking fascinating to begin with, especially if you guys were around for the intro. Like if you weren't around for the intro, go back and listen to that. This is like, we didn't talk about any of the stuff we were talking about right now, but I'm going to bring some of it back forward a little bit. Like, for example, one of my favorite aspects of, we'll go with physics, because like we talked a little bit about the war stuff and I don't want to get to like doomy again. But like one of my favorite things that I'm looking forward to with homeschooling my kids in the future is like the fact that all matter of physics is like Tesla talked about. Nikola Tesla is a matter of frequency and vibration. Like the fact that you're capable of picking something up or holding something in your hand is a matter of the molecules and the atoms are holding certain chemical energetic bonds that are vibrating at a specific frequency that are different from the item that you're holding. That's what allows you to hold something or apply force to something else, because you can't break the physical bonds that are holding that material together. Like that kind of stuff, like I didn't learn in high school or middle school, but you can teach it to your kids at, I mean, I'm not a father yet. I was gonna say I'm not a father yet, but like you can bet that from the point of where language starts developing, I'm gonna be testing where like how far can I actually push your understanding?
Right.
Like I'm gonna be the dad that's trying to teach my 3-year-old astrophysics or something, you know, and
it works.
And well, it might work. Yeah, that's the thing. Is like in like the point being is that being able to, before I go to where I wanted to go, what people need to understand is that the appreciation for growing wealth and accumulating wealth and money is not for necessarily, at least not in our position, is not for the love of money or for the love of wealth. It's for the love of freedom that comes from resource accumulation, right? Whether it would be the same if we weren't in a society, if we weren't here now, if we were back in the cave dwelling times, it would be tantamount to having a cave where you have a stack full of dry firewood that is ready to use as soon as you need it. That's primarily what we're talking about, because having that dry stack of resources that's ready to be deployed whenever you need it gives you a level of security and safety and comfort and freedom to be able to take other risks that you wouldn't have normally been able to take. Like, for example, with the firewood stack, you can afford to sleep at night with a fire going, and you can stay warm all night and not have to relight the fire or not have to wake up and be like freaking out that the fire went out, that kind of stuff. And that's effectively what Bitcoin does for all of us, is that you're like, once you do the studying to the point of where you understand that you can trust the code, that you can, now you still have to, like we were holding the politicians' feet to the fire, you still have to hold developers' feet to the fire to like stick to like the kind of ethos of like sovereignty and freedom. But that's a different conversation. You can trust the code. You can trust that there is so much energy dedicated to the Bitcoin mining network that it is the most secure computational network in existence that the human species has ever experienced, that it can't be hacked because of that. That if it were to be hacked, if there was a breakthrough in quantum computing and whatever idiot was in charge of the quantum computer that could do that decided to attack the Bitcoin network because they're a moron, because they don't understand that if you were to attack the Bitcoin network and bog it down, that we could just soft fork it and go around it and then continue going on like it never happened, that you would understand that like quantum computing is not a risk. They're the bigger honeypot is with like the nuclear launch codes and other things, which are a far greater concern than the Bitcoin network. Like all these different things give us a level of security and peace to the point of like, we have our Bitcoin stack. Oh, you want to like scream and yell at me because I didn't wear a mask for the COVID pandemic, or I'm not calling you by your Z, Zer, or whatever stupid ass pronoun you want me to call you by, I don't give a shit. Like, that's fuck you money. Like, you, and the powerful thing for the 1,100 people that are listening is that 1,200. Sorry, you guys, that I missed the count. 1,200 people listening. The important thing here is, notice how I didn't say it's fuck you money determined upon the amount of money. It's just strictly fuck you money. Like, you could be down in South America and you could only have $12 in Bitcoin, but it's a month's worth of like expenses or like salary or income or whatever. $12. If $12 in Bitcoin is fuck you money for you, that's all that matters. It's like, great. Like, I'm not beholden to your power like dynamic. You're gonna have to find some other strategy to be able to manipulate my behavior. And
it's gonna unleash. It's going to unleash so much genius and passion and local work. That's not going to people who are just trying to make a buck. And that is going to change the world in such a way that is so profound that we don't even understand it yet.
Well, and the fact that like nobody can stop the transaction. Once the transaction is committed to the network, it's there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's something else too. So like, that means that like cooperation can no longer be stopped. Like, Jamie Dimon can't get in there and be like, oh, like, you're buying that handmade good from that South American vendor. Like, we can't have you doing that. It's like, sorry, Jamie.
Yeah, I'm gonna
gargle on something.
Out of something that's exotic down there in the Amazon, and there's nothing you can do. It's going
to bring back it's going to be the return of durable goods and services.
Yeah.
Get away from this plastic economy of just like, oh, it broke down. No point in trying to repair it. We're just going to throw it away and buy a new one.
Yeah.
Like, I want to repair shit.
When you couple it with Nostr, where nobody can interfere with payments and nobody can interfere with communications, boy.
Yep.
The power that is about to be unleashed into mankind around the world as more and more people understand this and what it's going to do for them, especially in the global South, man, it is going to just be jet fuel in terms of Bitcoin and the human population doing great things.
Oh yeah, dude. Like, it's just hopium straight into my veins.
Let's go.
And my favorite part is that I am the Doom Lord here. And I'm still the one spouting all of the hopium and like the bright horizons and everything. It's out there, but focus on the Doom Lord stuff to make sure you don't screw it up along the way. Right? That's the point.
You seen that chef out there that says, "Don't fuck it up," and he starts to make things. Maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Anyway,
is it Ramsey? Is it Chef Ramsey?
No, it's this young guy. I think he's out in the Northeast somewhere. Some WAP. That's the big thing, right? We can end on a philosophical note. Is like, success doesn't necessarily mean you made all the right choices. You just avoided all of the worst ones. I like that. I think it's a great place to end it. Mike, any final thoughts for the night, or is that it?
No, I think that's a good final thought. Just don't make the worst decisions. You should come out all right.
Yeah, it's a great point. There's a good point between, there's the saying is, do you know that the difference between bravery and stupidity? No.
Ooh, I've heard.
No, that's why
there
life
isn't one.
So,
okay.
Ladies and gents, we appreciate all 1,200 plus of you out there. It means that we're doing the right thing. We're over target, and we are giving out information and some aspects of maybe what's going on in our current dialogue here in the United States and around the world. That's bringing some light to the conversation, especially in the world that has been very dark as of the last 4+ years. That's what we try to do. We're trying to get everybody on the mission. If you want to join us, you can go to bitcoinveterans.org. We have an onboarding team over there. They will get you spun up and into the chats. You can learn Bitcoin. You don't have to be a veteran. We love having the veterans in this community, but this is a worldwide movement. And those of you guys that were smart enough not to go and serve the murder cults,
unlike us.
We would be doing ourselves a disservice not to have you guys within our ranks. So big thank you to our partners out there. We've got BitAxe and the guys over at Solo Satoshi. If you don't know who they are, they're amazing. This is going to help decentralize mining around the world. We've got the guys over at Black Sheep Ammo that gave us a bunch of ammo for the range. And I got to say, we had a fun time shooting out there. I cannot wait to do that again.
Yeah.
And
then, one more shout out would be to BitBlock Boom. I'm going to be out there chatting a little bit about what Bitcoin Veterans is doing. I have a small little spot. I don't have a whole lot of time to dedicate to it, but it is a nice small little kind of intimate conference for those of you that want to try and get the opportunity to be a little bit closer to like the thinkers that you know and admire. That's probably the conference to get to, because the other ones, like the Bitcoin Magazine one, while I have a lot of friends over there at Bitcoin Magazine, it's just too big. It's too big. There's too much going on. There's too much shit coinery there too, that like for my liking. BitBlock Boom, I believe, I should know this, but I don't, it should be in Dallas, I believe, this year. And if you guys in the audience, if you guys are wanting to be a part of that, we have a discount code for, I believe, I can't remember the percentage. It's not quite as much as it was last year. Last year was a bit of a one-off situation, but if you do want to get tickets, come out and join me out there, or some of the Bitcoin veterans that I know that are going to be out there. BTC Vets, all caps, would be the discount code if you guys want to partake in that with me. Other than that, did we get all this? Because we got BitAxe and
we need to shout out to Punchplate as well.
Yep.
Punchplate is, I think, the most cost-effective, smartest way, easiest way to store your seed words. If you haven't done that yet, do it. Don't be that guy that lost your damn Bitcoin to a dog or a child or a fire or a spill. Like, man,
or a boat.
Get that shit off of paper and get.
If you're a Bitcoiner, you shouldn't have a boat anyway. Boats are just, they're not investments.
Yeah, if it flies, floats, or never mind. Yeah, you know the saying. There's also Bitcoin Alaska, and Bitcoin Alaska is going on this July. I believe it is the 3rd through the 6th. There is bitcoinalaska.org. Our buddy Wade Hoke out of Alaska has set this up. It's in Juneau. I highly recommend. If you got an opportunity to come up and join this, it's going to be a bunch of vets and our community. Going to be a spectacular event. I'm sure the food is going to be incredible. If you haven't seen the Alaska landscape, it's absolutely breathtaking. So, maybe get up there a couple days earlier, stay a couple days later, and get to know that place and spread the Bitcoin message. I know Wade has been up there busting his ass with not only the Bitcoin Alaska conference that he's putting on, but also with his local and state legislators. That guy is absolutely on a mission. And the last thing I'd plug is our daily show. Coleman does a fantastic job, 10 o'clock Eastern every day on X. And I imagine at some point he'll even have that streaming over to zapstream.com, or I should say zap.stream. But go check out the daily show. They've got all sorts of great guests over there. They've got a good panel. Sometimes I show up, sometimes Mike shows up, sometimes the other Bitcoin veterans show up. And I got to tell you, some of the top-notch analysts that are out there, they talk a lot about what's going on in the markets. They analyze this from that kind of perspective a lot, and then we do get into a little bit of geopolitics when necessary. But
and on that point, big shout out to Omar too. He's been helping out Coleman with hosting that and driving conversation. And Omar is like he is everywhere, man. I don't know if he's watching all of our stuff all the time or what, but it seems like it. If he's just playing the role and like making it look like he's a part of it, he's doing a good job. But
I'll go ahead and put that out there. Omar, if you're out there, we'd love to have you come and guest host this show with us someday too. It's great contribution. Bob is also part of that crowd. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this show. I mean, all 1,225 of you out there in the audience, man, you guys are incredible. Thank you guys for being here with us. I know this is not a light show. It's sometimes not a fun show. But
a lot of times it's my fault too.
Yeah, we do try to add value and give you guys an understanding of how Bitcoin is going to absolutely change the world by fixing the incentive structure, by fixing the money. So until next week, 9 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, we will see you then. Peace.
Oh, that was